My name is Sophia. I am 26 years old. I live in a small, quiet town where most people know each other. My life used to be very simple, and for a long time, I believed it was perfect. I lived in a small apartment with my boyfriend, Lucas. Our apartment was not big, but it was warm and comfortable. It had 2 small rooms, a tiny kitchen, and 1 bathroom. The best thing about the apartment was the large windows. Every morning the sun came inside and filled the rooms with soft golden light. When I saw that light, I always felt calm and happy. I work in a small office near my home. Every morning I walk to work, and the walk takes only 10 minutes. I like this routine because it gives me time to think and breathe before the day begins. My job is not difficult. I work with kind people who smile and say good morning every day. My boss is patient, and my coworkers often help each other. I arrive at 8 in the morning and finish at 5 in the evening. I am not rich, but I earn enough to live a comfortable life. For a long time, I believed that simple life was the best life. Lucas also worked hard. He had a job in a computer store in town. He sold computers and helped customers choose the right machines. Many people liked him because he was friendly and very smart with technology. When people had problems with their computers, Lucas always knew what to do. I was proud of him. He was kind, handsome, and funny. We had been together for 3 years, and those years felt bright and joyful to me. In the evenings, we cooked dinner together, watched movies, and talked about our dreams for the future. I also had a best friend named Chloe. We met when we were young students at school, and our friendship grew stronger every year. By the time we were adults, we had been friends for almost 10 years. Chloe was lively, warm, and full of energy. She laughed easily and loved long conversations about life, love, and silly things that made us smile. She visited our apartment often, usually 2 times every week. We would sit in the kitchen with tea, talk for hours, and share our stories. To me, Chloe was not only a friend, she felt like a sister. Life followed the same peaceful rhythm every day. I woke up early, walked to work, finished my tasks, and returned home in the evening. Most days, Lucas arrived a little before me, and he was already in the kitchen preparing dinner. Sometimes we cooked together and laughed when we made small mistakes with the food. After dinner, we relaxed on the sofa and watched television or a movie. Other nights, we simply talked. We spoke about our plans, about places we wanted to visit, and about the future we wanted to build together. During those years, I often thought my life was perfect. I had a loving boyfriend, a loyal best friend, and a stable job. I did not need expensive things to feel happy. Small moments were enough for me. The smell of coffee in the morning, the sunlight through the window, and the sound of Lucas laughing in the living room made my heart feel warm. When Chloe visited, our apartment felt even brighter. The 3 of us talked and laughed together, and it felt like we were a small family. For a long time, every day felt safe and predictable. I trusted the people in my life completely. I believed nothing could break the quiet happiness we shared. But life does not always stay the same. Sometimes change begins very softly, almost like a whisper. At first, you do not notice it. You continue living your normal routine and believe everything is fine. That is exactly how it started for me. The first changes were small and easy to ignore. One evening, Lucas came home later than usual. Before that day, he normally arrived around 6 in the evening, but that night he came closer to 7. I asked him if something happened at work. He smiled and told me the store was busy and his boss asked him to stay longer. His answer sounded normal, so I believed him. A few days later, it happened again. Then it happened more often. Sometimes he came home at 8, looking tired and quiet. Another small change appeared slowly. Lucas began looking at his phone much more than before. During dinner, his eyes often moved down to the screen. When we sat on the sofa, he sometimes smiled quietly while reading messages. I asked him what was so funny, but he usually shook his head and said it was nothing important. Sometimes he said a friend sent a joke. I wanted to believe him, yet a strange feeling started to grow inside my chest. I tried to ignore the feeling, but it stayed with me. Lucas also talked less than before. In the past, we shared everything about our day, but now many evenings passed in silence. He watched television without really paying attention, and sometimes he looked lost in thought. I asked him if he was okay, and he always said he was just tired from work. I nodded and tried to smile, yet the quiet space between us felt larger each day. One evening, Chloe came to visit as usual. We sat in the kitchen and drank warm tea together. I told her about Lucas coming home late and about the strange feeling in my heart. Chloe listened carefully and stayed quiet for a moment. Then she smiled and told me not to worry too much. She said men sometimes become distant when they feel stress from work. She told me Lucas loved me and that everything would be fine. I wanted very much to believe her. After that conversation with Chloe, I tried to calm my mind. She was my best friend for many years, and I trusted her words. If Chloe said everything would be okay, then maybe it was true. Maybe I was only worrying too much. I decided to be patient and give Lucas space. I stopped asking many questions, and I tried to make our home feel warm again. Every evening, I cooked dinner carefully. I made Lucas's favorite meals and tried to smile more when he came home. Sometimes he smiled back, but the smile did not stay long. He often looked tired or distracted. When we sat together, his phone was still in his hand. The bright light of the screen reflected in his eyes again and again. I noticed it, but I told myself it was not important. Chloe continued to visit our apartment 2 times every week. When she came, she always hugged me first. She asked how I was feeling and told me not to worry. She said Lucas loved me and that everything would become normal again soon. Her voice sounded kind and gentle, and hearing her words made me feel safe for a moment. But something strange began to happen when Chloe visited. Lucas suddenly became different. When it was only the 2 of us at home, he was quiet and distant. Yet when Chloe entered the room, he smiled more. He laughed at her jokes and spoke with energy again. Sometimes they talked about small, funny stories, and their laughter filled the living room. At first, I thought this was normal. Chloe had a lively personality, and everyone liked talking with her. But after some time, I started to feel like an outsider in my own home. Lucas and Chloe often looked at each other while speaking, and sometimes I did not understand their jokes. They shared quick smiles that I could not explain. One evening, Chloe arrived wearing a new perfume. The smell was soft and sweet, like flowers mixed with vanilla. When she hugged me, I noticed the scent immediately. I smiled and told her it smelled beautiful. Chloe laughed and said she had just bought it that week. She seemed very happy about it, and I was happy for her too. The next day, I was doing laundry in our apartment. I collected Lucas's shirts from the bedroom and carried them to the washing machine. When I picked up one of his shirts, a soft smell reached my nose. I paused and smelled the fabric again. My heart suddenly beat faster. The scent was sweet. It smelled like flowers and vanilla. For a moment, I stood still in the middle of the room. I knew that smell. It was Chloe's perfume. My hands began to shake a little, and I placed the shirt down on the table. Many thoughts rushed through my mind at the same time. Maybe Chloe hugged Lucas when she visited. Yes, that was possible. She hugged him when she arrived and when she left. Friends hugged each other all the time. There was nothing strange about that. I told myself this again and again. I tried to believe my own explanation. But the strange feeling inside my chest grew stronger. I washed the shirt quickly and pushed the thought away, yet the question stayed in my mind. Why was Chloe's perfume on Lucas's clothes? During the next weeks, I started noticing more small things. Lucas often smiled at his phone, and sometimes, a few minutes later, Chloe called him. When he answered the call, he usually walked to another room and closed the door behind him. I could hear his voice speaking softly, but I could not hear the words. One evening, Chloe visited again. She and Lucas sat together on the sofa, while I sat in a chair across the room. They talked about something funny and laughed again and again. I tried to join the conversation, but it felt difficult. They were focused on each other, and I felt invisible sitting there. After a while, I quietly stood up and walked to the kitchen. Neither Lucas nor Chloe noticed me leaving the room. Their laughter continued behind me as I stood alone in the kitchen and looked at the empty wall. My eyes filled with tears, but I forced myself not to cry. I did not want to believe anything bad about them. Lucas was the man I loved, and Chloe was my best friend. I kept telling myself that I was imagining problems that did not exist. But deep inside, a quiet voice whispered that something was wrong. One night, I lay awake in bed while Lucas slept beside me. The room was dark, but my mind was full of questions. I thought about the perfume on his shirt, the phone calls behind closed doors, and the way Lucas smiled more when Chloe was around. Each memory made my chest feel tight. Finally, I decided I needed to do something. Our relationship felt cold and distant, and I wanted to fix it before it was too late. Maybe Lucas and I simply needed time together, away from everything else. Away from work, away from phones, and away from other people. The next day, I planned a surprise for him. I booked a small hotel near the sea for the weekend. The place looked quiet and romantic, with soft sand and blue water stretching far into the distance. I imagined Lucas and me walking along the beach, talking honestly again, and remembering the love we once shared. When I told Lucas about the trip, he smiled and said it sounded like a wonderful idea. Hearing that made my heart feel light again. For the first time in many weeks, I felt hopeful. Maybe this short trip would bring us closer again. I spent the next days preparing for our weekend away. I packed our bags, cleaned the apartment, and chose a beautiful dress to wear on the trip. I wanted everything to be perfect. On the day of our trip, Lucas said he would come home from work at 4 in the afternoon. We would leave together and drive to the hotel before sunset. I waited at home, excited and nervous at the same time. But 4 o'clock passed, then 5, then 6. My phone finally rang, and Lucas's name appeared on the screen. Before I even answered, something inside my heart already knew the truth. I answered the phone slowly. My hand felt cold as I held it to my ear. Lucas spoke first. His voice sounded soft and tired. He said he was sorry. He said something happened at work and he could not leave. There was a big problem at the store, and his boss needed him to stay longer. He told me we could take the trip another time, maybe next week. Next week. I heard these words and felt something break quietly inside me. I did not shout or argue. I simply said, "Okay." My voice sounded calm, but inside my chest, everything felt heavy and empty. I ended the call and placed the phone on the table. For a long moment, I stood in the middle of the room, looking at the bags I had packed for our trip. The dress I chose was hanging near the door, ready for the evening. Then the tears came. I sat down on the floor and cried. I cried for a long time, until my eyes felt sore and my body felt tired. All the hope I had placed in that trip slowly disappeared. The quiet voice in my heart returned again, telling me something was very wrong. After a while, my tears stopped. I wiped my face and sat silently on the floor. My apartment suddenly felt different. The walls looked the same, but the warmth I once felt there was gone. The place felt cold and strange. That night, I made a decision. I needed space to think. I needed to be away from Lucas and away from all the confusion. My parents lived in another town about an hour away. I had not visited them in a long time. Suddenly, the idea of seeing them felt comforting. I packed a small bag with clothes and a few personal things. Then I sent a message to my mother. I told her I wanted to visit for a few days. She replied quickly and said they would be happy to see me. Early the next morning, I quietly left the apartment. Lucas was still asleep in the bedroom. I stood at the door for a moment and looked back at the place that once felt like home. So many happy memories lived in those rooms, but now everything felt filled with secrets. I closed the door softly and walked to my car. As I drove away, tears returned to my eyes. But mixed with the sadness was another feeling. It was small and quiet, but it was there. It felt like freedom. I drove for almost an hour along the empty road. The morning air was cool and the sky was pale blue. My mind slowly began to calm down. Then suddenly, I remembered something important. My mother's birthday was next week, and I had bought a special gift for her. I left it on the table in the apartment. The gift meant a lot to me, and I did not want to lose it. I sighed and turned the car around. When I arrived back at the apartment building, everything looked normal. The street was quiet, and the morning sun shone through the windows. I walked to the door and used my key very carefully. I did not want to wake Lucas if he was still sleeping. The apartment was dark and silent when I stepped inside. At first, I thought the place was empty. Then I heard something. Soft music was playing somewhere inside the apartment. It was slow and gentle, like the music people play during a romantic evening. My heart suddenly began to beat faster. Lucas never listened to music in the morning. I walked slowly toward the living room. Each step felt heavy, like my feet were made of stone. The music grew louder as I moved closer. My chest felt tight, and a strange fear spread through my body. When I reached the living room door, I stopped. I looked inside. At first, I saw only the sofa and the soft light coming through the window. Then my eyes focused on the two people sitting there. They were very close to each other. My heart stopped. It was Lucas, and it was Chloe. They were not talking. They were not laughing. Their eyes were closed, and they were kissing slowly and gently. The music played softly behind them, as if the world around them did not exist. For a moment, I could not move. I could not breathe. My boyfriend and my best friend were kissing on my sofa in my home. Everything inside me turned cold and empty. My heart did not break loudly like in the movies. It simply disappeared, like a light that suddenly goes out in the dark. I stood there like a statue. The music continued to play. The world continued to move. But I felt frozen. Then Lucas opened his eyes. He saw me standing at the door. His face turned pale, and he jumped up from the sofa. He said my name quickly, like he was afraid. "Sophia!" Chloe opened her eyes too. When she saw me, her hands covered her mouth. Tears immediately filled her eyes. She began saying sorry again and again. "I'm sorry, Sophia. I'm so sorry." But the word sorry felt empty. It sounded like noise that had no meaning. I looked at both of them silently. Lucas tried to walk toward me, but I stepped back quickly. "Don't touch me," I said. My voice sounded quiet, but it was cold like winter. Chloe cried harder and stood up from the sofa. She kept saying she was sorry and that she never wanted to hurt me. She said she loved me like a sister, but sisters do not kiss each other's boyfriends. I looked directly at her. "Go home," I said. She hesitated for a moment, then grabbed her bag and rushed out of the apartment while still crying. The door closed behind her, leaving only Lucas and me standing in the silent room. Lucas began talking quickly. He said it was a mistake. He said it meant nothing. He said he loved me and begged me to forgive him. But I did not really hear his words. They sounded like distant noise. I simply turned away and walked to the bedroom. I closed the door and locked it. Lucas knocked on the door and called my name many times, but I did not answer. I sat on the bed and stared at the wall for the entire night. I did not cry. I felt too empty to cry. The truth had finally shown itself, and there was nothing left to understand. The sun slowly came up the next morning. Soft light entered the bedroom through the window, but I had not slept at all. I sat on the bed the whole night, thinking about everything. Every memory with Lucas and Chloe passed through my mind like a long movie. Every smile, every laugh, every hug now felt different. What I once believed was love and friendship now looked like lies, but something inside me was changing. The pain was still there, but beneath the pain, I felt a quiet strength. I realized something important during that long night. My life did not end because two people betrayed me. My story was still mine. When morning arrived, I stood up slowly and opened the bedroom door. Lucas was sitting on the floor near the door. His eyes looked red and tired, like he had been crying. When he saw me, he stood up quickly. "Sophia, please," he said. "Can we talk?" His voice sounded desperate, but I felt calm. "It's over, Lucas," I said quietly. For a moment, he just stared at me. Then he started crying again. He promised he would change. He said he loved me and that Chloe meant nothing to him. He begged me to give him another chance, but my heart was already finished with him. I walked to the table and placed the apartment key down. That small metal key suddenly felt very heavy in my hand. "Goodbye, Lucas," I said. He called my name again, but this time I did not stop. I picked up my bag and walked out of the apartment without looking back. Outside, the morning air felt fresh and cool. I got into my car and drove to my parents' house. When I arrived, my mother opened the door and hugged me tightly. She did not ask many questions. She simply held me for a long time. My father sat next to me and made tea. They gave me quiet love, and that was exactly what I needed. I stayed with them for 2 weeks. During those days, I cried a lot. Some days I felt very sad. Some days I felt angry. Other days I felt nothing at all. But little by little, something inside me began to heal. Each morning, I woke up feeling a little stronger than the day before. After 2 weeks, I returned to my town. But I did not return to Lucas. Instead, I found a new apartment. It was very small. It had only one room, a tiny kitchen, and a bathroom. There were no big windows like my old apartment. At first, it felt empty and strange, but it was mine. There were no lies in that apartment, no secrets, only me and the truth. The first few weeks were difficult. I had almost no furniture. I slept on a mattress on the floor. But slowly, I started building my new life. I bought a small bed, then a table, then a chair. Every new thing made the apartment feel more like home. Work helped me stay busy during the day. But the evenings were quiet. One afternoon while walking home, I passed a small shop with a sign on the window. It said, "Art Class for Beginners." I stopped and looked inside. Several people were sitting at tables painting pictures. The room looked peaceful and colorful. Something inside me told me to go in. A kind woman welcomed me and asked if I wanted to try the class. I felt nervous, but I said yes. That evening, I held a paintbrush for the first time. Bright colors covered the paper: red, blue, yellow, green. As I painted, something strange happened. My mind became quiet. I stopped thinking about Lucas. I stopped thinking about Chloe. I only thought about the colors and the shapes on the paper. For the first time in many weeks, I felt calm. I began going to the art class every week. Painting slowly became my safe place. When I painted flowers, trees, or the sky, I felt like my heart was speaking through colors. Each painting carried a small piece of my feelings. In the class, I met a woman named Eleanor. She was older than me and had kind eyes and soft white hair. She smiled often and spoke gently. One day she told me my painting was beautiful. We started talking after class, and soon we became friends. Real friends. Honest friends. Eleanor invited me to her home for tea sometimes. Her small house was full of books and green plants. She told me about her life and how art helped her heal after losing her husband years ago. Her words helped me understand something important. Pain can change us, but it can also help us grow. Months passed. 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. Slowly, I started smiling again. I laughed more often. I felt like I was finding myself again. One Saturday, I decided to sell my paintings at a small market where local artists shared their work. I placed my paintings on a small table and waited nervously. People stopped and looked at them. Some people smiled. And then something amazing happened. Someone bought one. Then another person bought another painting. My heart felt full of pride. I had created something with my own hands, and people loved it. From that day on, every Saturday, I went to the market to sell my art. Each week, I felt more confident. One day, a tall man with dark hair stopped at my table. He looked carefully at one of my paintings of the sun. "This is beautiful," he said. "Did you paint it?" "Yes," I replied. "My name is Julian," he said with a warm smile. "I'm Sophia," I said. He bought the painting, then asked if I would like to have coffee with him sometime. For a moment, I felt nervous. Trusting someone again felt scary. But then I remembered something. I was not the same broken person anymore. I was stronger now. So I smiled and said yes. And as I walked home that day, I realized something important. My life did not end when my heart broke. That was simply the end of one chapter. A new chapter had already begun. Thank you for listening to Sophia's story. If you enjoyed this simple English story and want more emotional stories to help you learn English easily, please like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Cozy English Story. Your support helps the channel grow and brings more peaceful, easy English stories to everyone. See you in the next story.